Thank you. Wonderful. I told you should promise that I finish before 18, but I'll tell them now, so don't worry. It will be done before 18 o'clock. So what you did not just see was the EDF. For sure, you could see the tripartite presentation there, definitely. So what we do is kind of close to what ECCC does, but we do it for a little bit different stuff, you know, things that blow up, and some say that it's even for democracy or safeguarding democracy and delivering freedom of speech, one grenade at a time and things like that. So the EDF is de facto about maximizing the outcome of defense spending, so defense proper, defense material. And we do that in research and development. When it comes to EDF, research from ECC's presentation, that's very much like Horizon Europe, with the difference, of course, that in EDF we fund defense material. We don't stop at dual use. We go all the way. And then the development part, that's a little bit pre-DEP, Digital Europe. We don't go really as far as that because, no surprise, EU budget funds cannot be used to procure defense material. So the Commission does not procure defense material. EDF is only for research and development for the need of the member states. And indeed, that's the point where EDF went for steps forward. So I mean, it began in 2021, so it's a new one. It's for support for cross-border operation. Always more than one country needs to be, or entity from more than one country needs to be in place. And the point is to draw in new actors to the defense market. Because if anything is true, it's the fact that it's a little bit difficult to penetrate the defense market for SMEs. We agree, that is so. So EDF not only does it improve defense capabilities and the security of the member states, it's also for bringing in a more competitive structure and the SMEs, in particular the SMEs, to the defense sector. The defense sector, we typically say that, remember, the defense sector is open but closed. So the only customers are the member states. Now we have an acquisition part here. So for sure, anything that's developed, researched and developed, there's no point in having it unless it's going to be acquired. But that's not funded by the European Defence Fund. We have an instrument for that also, but basically that's member state funded, obviously, because the member states are the customers. Norway is an accession party in this, if anyone would think of it. So we started, we have a reasonable amount of money involved here. We started 21, there was a pre-program where we trained and checked how this works. And currently we are running on a rate of approximately 1 billion per year. Strangely enough, that makes the Commission or the EU the second largest defense research agency in the EU, the first one being in one member state. So this is not insignificant, it's in fact very significant. We have quite a lot of projects already running, so more than or close to 200, and we have beneficiaries far beyond 1,000 already involved. The projects we run, for those of you familiar with, not all of them are run or implemented by the Commission. Some of them are also done by the European Defence Agency and OCCAR, for example. Not at all surprisingly, the big rise in who is participating here is in the SME field. So what we really see is that it took us a few years in the beginning, but now the SME field is really coming in, mainly due of two factors. One, we have something that's called a National Focal Point Network, which does this cooperation, and then two, the big integrators in Europe, starting with Airbus and Thales and whatnot, have also started to collect the SME fields in a cross-border manner, which was what we were aiming for. Inside the EDF, we have something that's a bit more relevant, particularly to the cyber community. It's the UDIS, European Defence Innovation. We have here separate figures, but in reality this is everything inside the EDF. But we have noticed that this is something that particularly attracts the cyber community. When we have been speaking in other forums like this is typically where they get super interested. The Defense Hackathon, which was tripartite, I think even the cyber part of the hackathon was led by a Polish interlocutor. It's already gone, so nothing about that. But then we do something that's very defense specific, and that's the challenges. So a challenge in the European Defence Fund works so that we have separate calls for the teams who participated and then the team who is leading the challenge. And the challenges are really big. I will show you examples of it. It means that when you will have a testing and proving scheme running for example, 3 years. As an example, autonomous ground systems, penetration of hostile environment. You have, for example, 3 testing campaigns in 3 different locations, geographically very different, and with different tasks. And then you have competing teams, and it's in these competing teams, you have, for example, 4 to 5 teams. You have the SMEs, and they test their own innovations and equipment, and between the iterations, they are required to compare the results, and then everybody starts from the same level to the next iteration. Yes, if some of you are familiar with how the US DARPA works, this has much similarities to it, and it's not by mistake. Then we have separate innovation foundries for different technology areas. The member states choose which technology area is chosen. For this year it's simulation and training. You have big integrators or bigger players who come together and they give you a platform. In this case it's a simulation and training platform, simulation and training technology platform. And then you come with your SME or 1-person, 2-person, 3-person party. With your idea, you come to the platform and you use that to test it, so you don't have to acquire testing schemes by yourselves. I have heard that this is a good saver if you do that. So you could, for example, think, we would not know that, member states decide what will be in the future, but you could, for example, fathom that you would have a sandbox in the future where you could come and test for free your idea to the sandbox, and then with that result, not only would you test for free, but you would also market your product to the ones who are doing the sandbox, and then you have a business opportunity after that. Access to finance, that's for entry-level, not scale-up, but the entry-level access. The amount there is, of course, very small. It's a fund of funds, so we expect to grow that to about 500 million or 1 billion once we have the private equities in it. And the purpose there, it's not dual use. The purpose there is to fund defense companies. And then the SMEs, I will come back to the SMEs. How does EDF work? Pretty much the same as Horizon Europe. We have annual work programs. What is special here is that the member states, so the customers, the future customers, decide the topics. And this is crucial to understand. When you come to the EDF and you participate in a call, you're not shouting in the woods or to an empty audience. The content of the topics has been defined by the member states. So you know that the member states, as the only customers for defense products, are looking for that. The Commission is not promising anything that it's an acquisition or anything like it, but the member states have decided the topics, and rest assured they do it because they have a plan what to do with the topic in itself. So it's really a business opportunity, I can tell you. We have a multi-annual perspective just to give you a few years ahead, but it's not binding. It gives you an understanding of where we might go. And it's also to give some sort of predictability to the external audience. The member states have, of course, a more deeper in-look into the multi-annual perspective, but that's the public one I'm now speaking about. So, but you can get inspiration from it and you see what happens there. So it's only 1.10 billion now for this year. The calls are, by the way, open, and they close 5th of November for this year. It's a bit tough to get in on the bigger defense projects, I admit, but for the SME calls, it's still relevant. Open now, and the technicalities, I will not go here into the technicalities. Everything is on the funding and tender portals. It's just like Horizon Europe and Digital Europe. For those of you who do dabble a little bit in defense, the European Defense Fund, it's fitted into the whole scheme of what defense does in Europe. The topics, they are within the CDP, so the CDP is the capability development plan where the member states have pledged things, and the card is how they have promised to put investments. So it's coordinated. And also NATO. The requirements are very often derived from NATO requirements. We don't have anything against it. It's, if not wonderful, it's excellent. Let's shoot with the NATO requirements. Come to EDF, get your funds for EDF. If your national security solution is built on NATO, no problem. You research, develop with EDF funds, and then you take and operationalize the solution, and then you use it in a NATO context. No problem. In fact, just good. Now, this was cyber focused, of course. You will notice that there is only one cyber category. The categories themselves are not, it's only there to assist the member states to plan the funds and how to do it. Cyber here means the war-fighting domain of cyber. Cyber domain as a war-fighting domain. It's not exactly the same as spoken here in the rest of the halls. What does this mean? From a cybersecurity provider or cyber technology innovation SME, you will probably find, from your perspective, the cyber technology part in every category. In every category. The cyber domain specific thing here is only from the perspective of the military in the war-fighting domain of cyber. But still, and this may surprise you, but in the business of defense, cyber resilience and cyber security is a must from design in all solutions, even if they are not solutions in the cyber domain. Quite simple. I will use the rest of the time only to give you small insights what this actually means. I will not read the calls or the topics because everything is available on the funding and tender portals. But just to show you the case here, what I mean. So you will have cyber elements, of course, in all of the categories. So as an example, information superiority, which is comms and signals basically. So it's a given that there is a cyber element in anything you do here. Now it also so happens that this category includes unmanned aerial vehicles for some reason. I will not go more into that. And of course you have cyber robustness elements in UASs. And then you had factual connectivity networks there, which obviously have cyber security part in it. Then, a bit surprising, or maybe not so much, sensors. Also here you will see that you will have cyber elements, most certainly into the multi-sensor integration for autonomous drone navigation, because of assuring both position and time in a distorted environment, which probably requires a robust, cyber robust solution for the communication part. It's also a given. Cyber itself, yeah, I mean, these are what we have done earlier, just to give you a picture of what's been going on. For this year, something called the Federated Cyber Ranges project. It's a development project, 48 million from our side, and because it's a development project, it contains a number of member states who support it, and they will co-fund it. I could imagine the project ends up in a scale of around 60 million, for example. It's quite a big cyber project, to be honest. Probably it's going to be led by big integrators, and most probably they will call in SMEs, so you would need to have access to the integrators or be available for them. How would you do that? Well, you need to be known in the defense realm. Then again, an example for the space, that's much more given. Iris Square was mentioned elsewhere, so there's a lot of cyber elements in space now. You have the multi-source satellite image analysis challenge, and then the secure waveform for satellite communication development program, and the name itself already tells you that you will have an element of cyber robustness. Quite big projects also. And digital transformation, which we never remember ourselves why we separated digital from cyber, but it's separated for you, it's a cyber category, as you will see from the description. So the automated structure modeling for effect prediction, it involves edge computation mainly. And to everybody's surprise, also the so-called energy resilience includes a cyber element, and a heavy one, also in the forthcoming projects. Now on this one, just to point out, we have something that's called spin-in project, and sadly enough, my ECC colleagues had probably, they were in a hurry for the next beer, no, sorry, for the next presentation. A spin-in call is meant for a civil topic or something that's typically developed in Horizon Europe for something completely else. Then we have a military application, and then we have spin-in call. And the point is that you have a Horizon Europe outcome which we take into a defense project, provided that there are no restrictions on it, that the outcome could not be used for defense. But this is something we particularly do in order to get the most of the benefits from, for example, Horizon Europe cybersecurity projects, and throw them in. Once they are ready, throw them into the defense realm. Synergies. And the same for materials and components. This is, as you can imagine, the electronic components here. This is in reality a hardware cybersecurity project. Mainly, yeah, it's between hardware and firmware. Easy to see what's meant if you read, if and when you read the topic itself. But as noted, well, not even go into simulation, of course it's cyber. Then we have some open categories. We have disruptive and SME. Disruptive category, so you can come in with your own proposal as long as you have the theme here. So these are in fact not decided by us beforehand, but they were there as inspiration, and then the outcome was this. The same now, we have quantum technologies and then non-thematic research as open calls. And the difference to SME open calls, which I will briefly show you, is that Here you can do it together with a big integrator. On this one, the SME Open calls the field is completely open. As long as it's a defense product, you can come up with whatever. And no surprise here, out of the 300 applicants last year, for example, 75% were on cyber. It's simply the easiest and quickest and fastest way for people to do this. And those of you who have applied for Horizon Europe projects, a small marketing piece in between here, you can imagine that the success rate in the European Defence Fund is, you can do the math, but let me assure you, it's a bit easier to get funding from the European Defence Fund than from Horizon Europe, simply because of application figures. Okay, that's me today, and typically those of you who would be actually thinking of an application have questions, but those questions are typically asked afterwards, and that would be me for today. Thank you for your attention.